For over a decade, the Rune Factory franchise has done incredibly well at setting itself apart in the farming sim genre. By adding its own unique flavor of action RPG gameplay to the formula of growing crops and building close bonds with villagers, they created a truly special video game experience. Well, now it's 2025 and the newest installment has taken on the task of setting itself apart from the rest of the series. Guardians of Azuma is like a reset for Rune Factory that looks like none of the other games, but feels distinctly just like a Rune Factory game should. For today's quickscope, allow me to go over with a fine-tooth comb this exciting new title that fans have been eagerly waiting for. Now it's out, so let's talk about it. But first, I'm just gonna remind everyone real quick, like, comment, subscribe on this video. It does help us out a great deal. Alright, let's do it. First off, let me just commend the team behind Guardians of Azuma for the amount of voice acting they put into this game. I was surprised by how often I was hearing dialogue from the characters rather than just having a silent text box. Overall, I felt that Marvelous went to a great effort to build a narrative-focused title, and it makes progressing through the story that much more absorbing. Players will get to meet several interesting characters throughout their time in the Eastern Lands, aka Azuma, and will be getting a lot of use out of the ability to increase bonds and even dating elements, which is, of course, a staple for the Rune Factory series. And the character bond increases even have a greater emphasis with these cool new cutaways they designed. But while several things will feel familiar, Guardians of Azuma's bold new direction starts with the visuals. That is because Marvelous has fully revamped the visuals for Guardians of Azuma. Compared with Rune Factory 5, it does feel like a big step up in the graphics department, but also doesn't feel that alien from the rest of the series, which is nice. I'll be honest, I'm having some difficulty describing the visual boost in greater detail. I think it really comes down to the fact that they handled textures a lot better with this newest entry, leaving the game world to feel artsy and anime aesthetically, but with a lot more definition to floors, objects, and backgrounds. And remember when I mentioned how the game is full of interesting characters? How well they were designed is a big part of that, and as far as I'm concerned, Guardians of Azuma just checks off the right boxes visually to be considered a great modern JRPG. And just like with the visual boost, I believe this would be the strongest in the series combat-wise. In the past, fighting monsters and bosses felt a tiny bit off. The enemies would ragdoll into the air motionless, and the player character attacks could feel slow, at least for action RPG standards. With Guardians of Azuma, the same cannot be said. Your attacks chain together quite elegantly. There really is a beautiful flow the way your attack strings wipe out enemy after enemy. You get tons of cool abilities, and I also feel that the game benefited from the added bow and arrow. While you're perfectly fine just locking on to fire away from a distance, aiming greatly expands your arsenal of combat options. It's a simple addition, but it's really cool when, for example, you're fighting a boss who charges to the other side, and I just don't really feel I need to run to them immediately because I can whip out the bow and arrow to start picking at their health from a distance. Now on the flip side of gameplay lives the farming sim aspect. Rune Factory is not a true blue Rune Factory if we can't grow some turnips. And luckily for us, this game has more turnips than you'll know what to do with. Several design tweaks have been made for Guardians of Azuma, but I think what's most important to know is that Marvelous went to great lengths to make this a more streamlined experience. For example, the Sacred Fan allows players to harvest multiple crops at a time. And when harvesting, you don't go into a state where the protagonist character is carrying a crop physically, it just automatically goes into your backpack. This saves us a ton of time. And side note, I also love the Sacred Fan because having it equipped makes you run faster. But back to the farming, it's the Sacred Drum that can be used to expedite crop growth. One bang of your drum causes crops within a short radius to develop past the stage they're currently at. I'm gonna be honest, this feels like cheating. It seriously blew my mind to be able to just run up and participate in a crop's growth in this way. And it ends up kicking up your farm exponentially. Just think about it, since you can get seeds during harvesting, your farm growth will just take off. To put it in perspective, within the first 20 hours, I was already sitting on enough turnip seeds to fill up my entire spring garden and then some. Again, it cannot be overstated how many design choices shifted for this release. I actually think there's enough to warrant a further look, but I will reserve this for a future video when my thoughts on the gameplay differences are more fleshed out. For now, I also want to draw attention to the build and overhead view modes, as these are really significant. If you know me, you'll know that one of my favorite genres of video games growing up was RTS games. I absolutely love a world that is full of opportunity to build upon and expand. And for the first time in this series, players have the option to enter a separate mode with a focus on village development. You can freely place several building types, essentially shaping the town growth, rotating, and even deleting to place it down again elsewhere. This also includes adding paths and decorations, and now throw in a dedicated overhead view, and what they've done is essentially inject the blood of the RTS genre into the Rune Factory series. Two styles of games that are a beautiful marriage of simulation style gameplay when put together. I am not going to complain about being able to see my farm zoomed out with a grid to help me better assess what should go where. Oh, and speaking of efficiency, you can water in overhead mode and plant seeds too. It just has to be said, Marvelous really wanted to blow the game experience wide open for efficiency as well as accessibility. Just look at how quickly I can seed and water dozens of individual squares in my field using this new camera mode. One more aspect that I think also deserves praise is the party system. Whenever you go on out questing and do a lot of exploring, make sure to organize your party of up to 3 villagers. Well, it dawned on me that while you're out with your full party, they're actively developing their bond with the protagonist. I'm sure there's either a limit or it just doesn't add a large increase to the bond meter, but still, this ends up being a really nice way of killing 2 birds with 1 stone when you're out and about. Guardians of Azuma also gets nothing but praise from me for the story as well. Everything starts with an opening that I would say is really punchy for a JRPG. We are thrown into the world, also literally thrown down into the world, but we are thrown into the world and shortly get to explore what's happening around us in the spring region. To put it simply, there is a need to help this first village return to its former glory, and the protagonist just so happens to be the guy or girl for the job. We see a lot of emphasis on what's going on with the village, more so than the protagonist from the beginning of the game. During my interview at PAX East 25 with the representative from the Marvelous Exceed booth, I learned that the tagline for this installment of the series would be, "It takes a village." That really shows in this game world by how involved all of the characters are. As I'm playing, I'm watching a community that is struggling and needs to be rebuilt, combining their efforts to achieve the goal. Again, this story is emphasizing how it takes a village. Well, I would argue that while it does indeed take a village to help tend fields, construct and place buildings, the protagonist is clearly still the glue that brings all of that together. And that, of course, is where the player comes in. I will stop here to keep the spoilers in this video on the low side, but it has to be said, the story does not disappoint. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about the music in Guardians of Azuma. Longtime fans will notice that the music tends to be low or mellow throughout a lot of the areas, and missing is the slew of melody-driven RPG-type tunes. For this game, Marvelous leaned into there being a more low-key sound to accompany your experience. Either very chill tracks or more ambient sounds for the background throughout several in-game locations. This choice feels more in line with some of the visual, aesthetic, narrative, and gameplay choices previously mentioned, and I can appreciate how relaxing it feels to play this game. And while I certainly do miss the use of accordion, especially in tracks like the spring theme from Rune Factory 4 Special, I'm so happy that they kept the distinct sound effects for things like leveling up and going to sleep. Those jingles, along with other various sound effects they chose to keep, are etched into my brain because of how much I played Rune Factory 4 and Tides of Destiny. Without it, this game could lack some of that charm that Rune Factory is known for. Anyway, to bring everything to a conclusion, with a game like this, there really is so much more to say. These titles will give you an insane amount of bang for your buck. If you take it slow and enjoy side quests, collecting, and other fun activities, hitting 100 hours plus of playtime is a given. I expect that this will probably be my favorite game to play this summer. It's super cozy and yet action-packed and deep enough to scratch that RPG itch. All in all, I also enjoyed the new direction they took. Sometimes a new direction with a beloved franchise can be a scary thing. At first, it may even feel difficult to accept, but Marvelous went above and beyond with making this an experience that everyone can enjoy. That is why I would recommend this to anyone who likes RPG games, and especially for farm life sim fans, this is totally the game for you. If you have a Nintendo Switch 2, this is an incredibly strong launch title for the new console that runs really well, and with the benefit of being able to take your gaming on the go, you just can't go wrong. But that's gonna do it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on this video. Is there anything else that I haven't mentioned? Please make sure to let us know in the comments below. We always love to hear your feedback. For now, I simply have nothing more to say. So here is a giant turnip.